This playthrough is rated M for mature. Time to see how the good Russian man Raktor feels about our current situation. Greetings and salutations, viewers. Vauldemare back here with another episode of Shadowrun Hong Kong. In the last episode, we talked to everyone after doing the previous mission and got some money out of it, got some interesting tidbits about the world, and read some emails and got some more jobs. But now it's time to talk to our companions and chose our next job. So, oh yeah, off screen I raised my intelligence to 3, mainly because I wanted to be able to buy a flamethrower, which cost I think like $17.50 or whatever. Does 25 damage if it hits. Only cost AAP and 1 cooldown, so very nice. Just, you know, glass cannon ability. So I wanted a couple of attack spells. I'll eventually buy more stuff later, but oh yeah, I also bought the fetish that raises your willpower by 1 in spellcasting. And you're probably wondering, does it stack with that other one? Yes. So I have 2 willpower and 1 spellcasting. So this is a way for me to buff up my stats without buying it completely. Kind of like, you know, how you can bump up your stats with cyberware. They give you something in this game for that, so that's nice for mage users. But anyway, let's read the Shadowrun BBS and see what's going on there. Let's see, key phrases. Typhoon warning. This newscast just aired. If anyone wants to watch real-time Isobar data or Earthsat images of the storm, the basic service paywall and Skywatcher imagery is easily circumvented. The Imperial Japanese Meteorological Agency today issued an advanced typhoon warning for the northern Philippines and the coast of the Guangdong Federation, as Tropical Storm Usagi has grown into full-strength typhoon, Category 3, in the Pacific. Typhoon Usagi is formed late in the year for such a powerful storm. Meteorologists credit this growing trend of awakened cold season typhoons to global warming and powerful magical vortices in the eastern Pacific, which appears to help drive moist air convective over cooler ocean waters. The newscaster looks down at her notes. According to the official release by Lance in Rocky of Ijima, Usagi is now identified as an awakened storm. We have observed strong lightning activity, electromagnetic anomalies, and extreme concentrations of awakened seabirds along its edges. Awakened storms exhibit anomalous physical and magical behavior. Many experts believe they show reactive intelligence and possibly even self-awareness and resist making landfall to prolong their lives, even holding positions against prevailing winds. Study of these storms is inhabited by their extreme environmental conditions and astral turbulences. In physical strength, Usagi may peak as a violent typhoon, Category 5 on the Eastern Pacific scale, but will weaken substantially before making landfall. Although mariner lore is replete with the tales of malicious storms, scientists have detected no provable animosity towards metahumans in the behavior of these miracles of nature. Learn more on the wild storms of the Pacific this week's episode of Savage Nature with host Bertrand Munenicker. The Guangdong coast will likely have a long precursor battering with drenching rains but moderate winds as Usagi stalls offshore. Usagi is one of the more powerful storms of the season, but is not unusual. Usagi does not have super typhoon potential. This is going to be perfect, as long as a long soft hit by Usagi, lots of electromagnetic interference, and security cops all tied up. It's running season. I hope everyone's ready for a high operational tempo. Our fixers already scrambling for crews. I heart storms. Yeah, so storms cause a lot of problems. Man, wouldn't that be scary to have actual weather phenomenon that's like semi-aware of itself and intelligence? Ooh, that'd be scary. First smack. Come on. Welcome to what could be very well the last Shadowland Poetry Slam. There's something kind of sad about that. End of an era. In honor of Jivebert, I created an expert system that writes haikus. It takes whatever is being said in the thread and turns it into a poem. Mind if I fire it up? You shouldn't have. What kind of Poetry Slam includes bots? This is lame. Homage to Jivebert. The program stirs, churns out text. 3 lines mar the piece. That's brilliant. Now I can hang up my quill. I really don't buy that a bot can produce poetry like a living, breathing, feeling human being. Sorry. This is bullshit. Despair grips the poet, a machine crafting haikus. The jive bot breaks free. Was that supposed to happen? The slam is now slammed. This program has broken loose. Pandemonium. Well, look on the bright side. How much damage can a runaway poetry bot do anyway? You fucking people. Well, done with that little storyline. The hunt continues. A short clip of a Trid News broadcast begins playing. And despite their efforts, no one has yet to come forward. The government of Henan has denied all connections with the terrorist fugitives, even going so far as to slate that the White Star organization no longer exists. There has still been no word from the HKPF on the whereabouts of the fugitive terrorists. The mood on the streets is nervous. There's no telling when or where these terrorists will strike. For now, the Special Duties Unit, the HKPF, remain on active alert, ready to respond to a moment's notice. This is Sunny Chang with Horizon News, signing off. What a load of crap. How are they going to convince us of a bunch of lazy terrorists got into the FEZ and just disappeared under their noses, huh? This would never happen if Lone Star was the sole police force here. Sure, because heavily armed terrorists never sneak into Lone Star cities like Chicago and Seattle, only to disappear and remain free to roam the streets after they engage in public gun battles. There's no way Hanan is connected to these people. If they really were White Star, they'd have struck already. Their entire modus operandi is suicide bombings and civilian casualties. If these people are hiding, they're probably on the wrong side of a setup. Sure, because everybody in the shadows is just some bleeding heart fighting the megas because they believe in freedom. Screw the hell up. Well, sounds about right for a forum. Just different opinions, just blaring at each other. LF Tailor for special job. Searching for a tailor for some usual custom work. I might know a guy. Is this for armor? Not exactly. It's a surprise birthday gift for a friend. A friend's drone, actually. What exactly do you want a tailor to make for a drone? A cat costume with soft little ears and paws. Or better yet, a bear suit. Ooh. Or a red samurai outfit. I even have references that I can provide. Okay, you got a fat stack of Nuyen. This is going to cost you. I'll find the Nuyen. Can you help me? This will be so worth it. Yeah, I'll look you up. Well, that was weird. Well, it's the internet, right? Thread. Can't get a flight to Seattle. Hey, I've got a problem. I'm hoping one of you can help. I came out to the FEZ 2 weeks ago for work. Now that the job is wrapped, I've been trying to get an under-the-table flight to Seattle for the past week. Off the books. No passport control. That kind of thing. Nobody's making the trip. What gives? Check the newsfeed, man. Haven't you heard that Seattle's on lockdown? Nothing coming in or out of the city without a thorough search for at least another week. They caught some smugglers trying to move some really nasty stuff in through a covert landing at Discovery Park. Seems like a bit of an overreaction. Tons of awful stuff move through Seattle every day. What's so different about this time? Not like this. You didn't hear it from me, but I have some friends with ICE. They say whatever it was, it set off the radiological alarms with the Coast Guard ships that was sweeping the area. We're talking fissionable material here, enriched and ready to go in a bomb. No way, I don't buy that for a second. More likely, some corps had an accident with one of their ships and dumped some radiological material. They just don't want to admit it, so City Hall's covering their asses. Don't dismiss the news so lightly. The smugglers were carrying cargo for Winter Night. It's only pure luck the cargo was intercepted at all. Who the hell is Winter Night? Sounds like a goblin rock band. Not who, what. All you need to know is this. Winter Night is bad news. You cross them, they destroy your life. You ever run into any of them on a job, I suggest a solution that comes in 762mm. No more posts. More references to Shadowrun. The Returns. New York and New Pinjoy and HKPF or whatever. Hi there. Just arrived in Hong Kong from CFS. Want to meet other runners from the Philippines? Salamat Po. Anyone? I make really good penchant. Well, why didn't you say so right away? Kamusta Po Keo. Lots of former Hook families here. Welcome. Hi, Taga Sakan, me from Manila. I'm a decker, you? QC here, I'm a decker too. Pizza is fine and good, but you can also make, Dingguan? PM me if you can. Kamusta! Nice to meet you, CQ Blues. Hi there, Street Mage here. Might know some Pinoy runners looking for a new decker. Welcome. Smiley face. People just getting to know each other, I guess. But anyway, now that that's out of the way, time to talk to our allies. So let's see. Last time we gained a mission that mentioned some 2 people that Rector knew. I wonder if he knows anything about this. But before that, let's talk to our newest runner. We got a couple episodes ago. Gaichu here, the Red Samurai Ghoul. Let's see what he has to say. The storage room that functions as Gaichu's cabin is a cramped, overheating mess. Piles of old ship parts share space with tarnished cookware, flats of instant noodles, and a collection of cast-off clothes, and reams of diagnostic materials for obsolete computer hardware. To top it all off, there's barely any light whatsoever. All the bulbs in this room are missing. Gaichu is busily moving boxes around, apparently in an effort to carve out some personal space amid the junk that he shares with his cabin with. As you enter, he cocks his head and turns around. Welcome to my sanctuary, Wiggles. I apologize for the lack of light, but as I do not need it, Gobat took the bulbs for use elsewhere. Gaichu puts down the box that he's in the process of moving and politely bows his head towards you. How can I be of assistance? What do you think about the big Texas? Gaichu glances towards the ceiling, and after a moment extends a hand, palm up. A single drop of leaking oil falls onto it. I am shocked that it has not sunk and drowned us all, to be perfectly honest. But it is as much of a home as anywhere else I have stayed in Hong Kong, and I am certain fewer people will step upon me and try to kill me. For now, to suffice. Any thoughts about the last round? Gaichu shrugs, blinking a few times in surprise. What do you expect me to say? You have allowed me to live, invited me into a home or abode. If you prefer, and have given me a means to earn an income, use my particular set of talents. I am pleased with this. While I understand your desire to keep the elders alive to preserve whatever good will exist between you and the Wampons, I worry that such softness sends the wrong message to those in the underworld. There's a time for truth, and there's also a time for sending a message. Is there anything else I can do for you? And you talked about your condition being a ghoul. Gaichu inclines his head. As you wish. You are my benefactor, and as such I yield to you. Ask then, I will do my best to answer. How do I know that this team is safe from you? Because I give you my word that I will not harm you or anyone else on the team. Gaichu squares his shoulders in expression stony. I am a man with a disease, not a mindless beast. My word is my bond. But you're a cannibal. And you kill people? Does that mean you will kill me? The rest of the team? I think not. I do not eat human flesh because I enjoy it. I do so because of necessity. Tigers hunt because it is in their nature. So too it is with me. Is there a cure for the strain of HMHVV you have? Gaichu snorts harshly, shaking his head with a grimace. If there is, it is excluded the best doctors in Shanghai and Hong Kong. Eluded. The rest of the world is fared no better. If they have, there would not be as substantial bounties upon ghouls on every major nation. From what the doctors tell me, the disease will not kill me. I will live with it until I die, of some other cause, but I will remain a blind cannibal until that day comes. They say that strong-willed individuals can hold off mental degradation indefinitely. If that is true, I pray that I am strong enough. Aside from being blind, how has it affected you? Aside from my heightened senses of smell and hearing, I am stronger, tougher, and more resilient than any mundane human. I can achieve feats of physicality that are normally restricted to adepts and those with extensive enhancements. Gaichu lifts one hand, fingers crooked to show off his elongated nails. Claws, really. These as well. As sharp as any small knife. I prefer my sword, but in a grapple they come in extremely handy. He draws one nail over the surface of his shoulder plates. A hair-fine spiral of armor peels off in the nail's wake. Do you still need sleep? Gaichu chuckles, his laughter rasping out all over his lips. Unfortunately, I do. I am not an undead creature of legend. If I manage to unlock the secret of rest without sleep, I will be certain to inform you. By the way, there are creatures as like zombies in this world, believe it or not. Ghouls, zombies, all the sort. You know, basically, I mean, Shadowrun is basically just a cyberpunk fantasy world when you think about it. So all the fantasy creatures live there in some form or capacity. I thought ghouls were all animalistic predators. Most are. In the vast majority of cases, the infected become the crazed predators everyone sees them as on the nightly Trid news. Gaichu bares his jagged teeth, running his tongue across the tips of them as he tilts his head back. I bear the physical signs, but not the mental ones. A few escape that fate. There are others, though. In Africa, there's a nation of ghouls. It is called Azamando. The intelligent ghouls in Azamando care for the ones whose higher facilities have been ravaged by the disease. Still, it is not a safe place to visit. What makes you different? I am willful. Those with a strong sense of self, a chip on the shoulder, if you will, are always those that survive the infection with their minds intact. I suppose I am selfish enough to retain a passable semblance of a former humanity. Seems like your condition is stabilized. For now it has. I will not suddenly become a ravenous beast lurking in the hold of your ship. At least no more so than I already am. Gaichu bares his teeth in a wry grin, dipping his head a little. Why'd you pick the name Gaichu, anyway? It was given to me. This is what the Japanese call ghouls for the most part. I am vermin, a thing shunned by polite society, to be hunted and slain for a bounty. Old life is gone. It seems as apt a name for the street as any that I could. Usually Shadowrunners pick something more impressive. Gaichu leans back against the boxes behind him. Once I establish myself as a Shadowrunner of quality, the name will become impressive. Until then, I am unconcerned with what common people think of it. Your armor is heavier than what most Shadowrunners wear, and more distinctive, too. Gaichu nods, growling his assent. That is correct. It is the armor worn by the elite soldiers of the Runraku corporate military, the Red Samurai. If you have etiquette corporate, you can say those are the Runraku special forces, aren't they? But since I don't have that, you can ask, what are the Red Samurai? The Runraku Military Special Operations Division, the most elite that the corporation has to offer, on par with the Ares Fire Watch and the Tinagir Ghosts. Red Samurai are world-class soldiers assigned to only the most difficult and important missions. How did you manage to steal a suit of their armor? The corner of Gaichu's mouth curls up into the smallest of grins. I did not steal it. It is mine. You do not strike me as a corporate soldier. Circumstances changes, and with them perspective. I was a member of the Naraku military for my entire adult life, until my current affliction anyway. Hence, I still possess my armor, my sword, my training. They have served me well in both my previous life and in this one. How'd you end up running the shadows? Gaichu rasps out a coughing laugh that reverberates throughout the cramped room. What other employment is appropriate for a cannibal whose only previous experience is in the military operations? There are not many things I do not know to do. This is one of them. There are many things not many things I know how to do. This is one of them. Sorry. That doesn't explain why you fled your old unit. In theory, Red Samurai who are wounded are given the best in medical treatment and cybernetics. If these are insufficient to return them to active duty, they are given a pension and retired. In practice, this is never the case. Red Samurai teams do everything together. Eat, sleep, train, play. We learn to think of each other's moves as a single entity. When part of that team is broken, it affects everyone. Gaichu runs his claw over his scalp, sighing. The other members of the unit would be distracted, thinking about a wounded comrade, and would resent a new member for usurping the old member's place. So the wounded invariably take the same course of action, for the good of the team. Ritual suicide. Seppuku. That's completely insane. Gaichu chuckles softly, shaking his head. I believe that is effective in most cases, but I also believe I am worth more alive than dead. In my case, I became infected while on sabotage mission against Shiwaze in Osaka. The unit was exfiltrating on foot in Nanawina Ward through the Eren-shiku slums. We had not anticipated a ghoul nest on our route. My surprise got the better of me, and I was bitten. Understand that since the passage of the Yamamoto Act, Japan is a pure country. Metahumans are deported, and to be infected with the HMHVV is to be less than an animal. You will be killed on sight. Since this was in effect the same as being permanently crippled in the eyes of the team, I was expected that I would kill myself. That sounds pretty fascist. Gaichu bares his teeth in a vicious grin. When I was younger, I would have argued that you do not simply understand what it means to be Japanese. I think now, however, that you are correct. The Yamamoto Act is a convenient way to encourage nationalistic fervor while avoiding the racial problems of other nations by simply removing non-humans. Because I was still capable of fighting, I questioned the necessity of suicide. Why should I die if I was still as effective as before? Was it not worth having simply because my diet changed? One does not discard a quality tool simply because the surface is stained. I made the decision to leave while the unit was allowing me time to prepare my expected suicide. I took nothing but my weapons, armor, and a small number of personal mementos. I knew that the unit would hunt me down and kill me. Ghouls are considered vermin in Japan. To have a red samurai become one and refuse to die? Unconscionable. How long did it take for them to find you? They found me 2 weeks after I ran. I was careless as I fled south. They caught up with me in Fukuoka, but I escaped barely. It was at that point I decided that I should leave Japan. I knew they would not stop hunting me, but I could make it more difficult for them. How did you end up in Hong Kong? I was searching for a cure. I needed a place where I could disappear into the night, find work, and evade capture. If a cure did not materialize, the Yamamoto Act meant that it was even more dangerous to be in Japan than anywhere else. Gaichu smiles thinly. He leans back on his heels. I went to China, primarily because I still hoped to be able to return home. It felt less final if I fled to somewhere nearby. I went first to Shanghai, but Renraku's presence there is significantly more robust than in Hong Kong. I learned that my previous unit had not stopped hunting me after I left Japan, so I decided to move further afield. Gaichu unfurls his hand, claws pointing towards the ceiling. Hence Hong Kong. Where else can anyone arrive and disappear without the city carrying one wit? Seattle comes to mind. You could also mention Berlin, which is from the previous game. If Renraku were not building that towering archaeology to dominate the skyline, I would agree with you. Since it clearly has that kind of influence in the city, it seemed unwise to make my residence there. Gaichu runs his nails over his chin. Besides, I have always liked Hong Kong. It is more character than the UCAS. Since arriving here, I've drifted between neighborhoods, selling my services to those who are unafraid of my appearance and condition. Gaichu frowns deeply. It has not been as profitable as I had hoped. Did you grow up in a corporation? Yes. In Keihanshin, the Kyoto-Osaka Kabe sprawl. It is less populated than Neo-Tokyo, but not by much. I grew up in East Kobe, where my father was posted in Renraku complex. Gaichu roots around in a nearby box, running his fingertip over several chips before deciding on one. He slots it into his PDA, and a trid photo flickers to life in a space between you. A young man, obviously Gaichu, leans against a railing which overlooks a sprawling harbor complex of skyscrapers and cranes. His school uniform is ripped, and the beginnings of a black eye are forming. Abrasions over his knuckles and blood dots his pants. Despite this, he's grinning like he just won the lottery. Vibrant. Fierce. Look like you haven't changed much. How do you mean? I am unable to see which picture is being displayed. You're looking down at a city. Ah, that must be Mount Maya. If I remember right, I have gave better than I got in that fight. 3 against 1, but they were out of shape and cocky. I used to cause a lot of trouble when I was in school. My father was constantly raging that I had no sense of responsibility, and that I needed to take life more seriously. A cackle erupts from Gaichu, sudden mirth spreading across his face. The final straw was when he bailed me out of jail. I've been in jail a few times. What did you do? My friends and I stole a delivery van. It had a shipment of Shiwa's SimSense decks. Brand new, very expensive. We were going to fence them and use the money to take a trip into Okinawa. Gaichu pauses, cocking his head. Are you familiar with what it's like to grow up in a corporate family? Not a clue. You have to understand, children are trained to hate rival corporations. We did not regard a theft of Shiwa's goods as illegal. We were simply doing our part to ensure Rinraku's supremacy. This kind of behavior is ignored and even tactically encouraged by company media. Unfortunately, we were caught by Shiwa's security, not Rinraku. You think your father approved, even secretly? I doubt it very much. For him, the activity was not the issue. It was that I was caught and embarrassed both by the company and him. He is very much a man who believes that there is a proper way to do things, and I had once, again, cut corners. What did your father do next? Gaichu clicks his tongue a few times. He seems reluctant to continue. That is a story for another time. Unfortunately, I still have a lot of arranging to do, and I doubt anything else will be willing to be alone with me in a darkened room. Come back later. We can discuss it further. Okay, if that's what you want. Gaichu bows politely. It is, and thank you for your hospitality. So another one of those. We'll talk to him later. Oh, and we can check his box of memories. How vulgar. Gaichu's box of personal effects is overflowing with a collection of souvenirs, mementos, and knickknacks. There is no rhyme or reason to the collection of items. They appear to have been thrown in haphazardly. Laying atop the box are a collection of antique Japanese coins inside an overturned wooden mask in a black lacquered box with gold inlays. Gaichu cocks his head, sniffing the air in your direction. Ah, I see you found my box of personal effects. Please feel free to examine whatever you like within. Just take care to put them back when you are done. I do not own much, but the things I keep are very precious to me. They are all that remains of my former life. Examine the wooden mask. The wooden mask is extremely light. It's been painted a pale white, and the surface is almost as smooth as porcelain. Although it lacks the sheen of lacquer, the face traits are delicate, almost feminine, and feature lifted eyebrows, bright red lips, and delicately carved teeth. The teeth have been stained a deep black, barely visible by the slightly parted lips. The expression, while kindly, is ambiguous and uncanny. Viewed from above, the expression is one of calm content. Shifting the mask to view is an upward angle, causing the expression to seem melancholy, almost pain. What's this one mask, Gaichu? It is a mask from the historical Noah play, Ikuta Atsumori, the face that of a young samurai, Tiara no Atsumori. Gaichu faces your direction, gesturing towards the mask. I had a collection of a dozen or so Noah masks when I was younger. This is the last remaining one, and my personal favorite. What's the difference between a normal play and a Noah? Or no? No actors wear those masks to cover their faces. The angle they hold themselves at changes the expression of the mask, so the acting is highly rigid and controlled. The entire performance is highly ritualized. There's no measure of improvisation allowed, only refinement of the pre-described form. Gaichu folds his arms over his chest, dipping his chin in thought. The words are sung like in a Western opera, and accompanied by a set of musicals known as a hayashi. The hayashi keeps time with several drums, a flute, and a chorus. A chorus in the Greek theatrical sense of mean. Unfortunately, no is an unpopular art in modern times. I expect this is because all of the plays are conducted in classical Japanese, which is not comprehensible to the general public. I have heard that the creators of No, a father and son in the 14th century, took inspiration from magical rituals at Shinto shrines. It is said that by placing masks upon their faces, the actors become possessed by the spirit of the character they play. They are worse fates, I think, than to embody the spirit of a tragic warrior like Atsumori. What's the play about? A young man travels with the priest who raised him in a Kuta shrine to commune with the spirit of his father, Tiara no Atsumori. The young man's father died at the Battle of Ichinotani when the son was only a baby, and he wishes to know who his father was. The pair stay the night in a small hut. In the night, the hermit in the hut explains that he is the ghost of Atsumori. Atsumori has been granted a brief reprieve from his time in the afterlife to meet his son. During the night, they speak of the battle in which Atsumori was killed, the history of the Tiara family, and their philosophy. Or Taira family, whatever. Atsumori fades into the darkness as he finishes the tale of the Tiara's downfall, just as the family itself faded into obscurity. So think we, yet, what we might change fragile dream of joy into the lasting love of waking life, said Atsumori before fading. It is a tale of sorrow, love, and the burden of war upon the dead and living alike. The price one pays for war is not always in one's own blood alone, but in the shattering of one's own family. Why is your favorite? Gaichu smiles, expression distant. A measure of civic pride, I suppose, and I like the story. Tiara no Atsumori died in the Battle of Ichinotani, just outside Kobe. The play takes place primarily at Ikuta Shrine, which is located in downtown Kobe. In old cities in Japan, especially Keihanshin, I have always felt there is a sense of history whenever one looks. The skyline may have skyscrapers and delivery drones, but the foundations are laid on the bones of the dead. Gaichu shrugs, folds his arms across his chest. I think it is important to remember their sacrifices and joys, sorrows and glories. Gaichu laughs suddenly, shaking his head. This is why sometimes I worry that I am sentimentalist at heart. Put the mask in the box. Examine the lacquered box. The box is a deep, glassy black cube. The edges and corners are rounded rather than sharp, and the gold flake inlay across the surface glitters even in the dim lighting of the room. Sliding the top off, the interior contents are revealed. A calligraphy set, complete with inkstone, block, brushes, and paper. Gaichu wrinkles his nose, his expression one of distance. Ah, that thing. It is a beautiful set, but it's a shame that I am unable to make use of it. Because you're blind? Gaichu snores derisively, stifling laughter. No, my handwriting has always been absolutely terrible. Whatever fanciful stories you may have heard of being able to tell a swordsman's ability by his handwriting, I assure you that they are all wrong. The set was a gift from a professor of Japanese literature. He appreciated my interest in the classics, the tale of the Hekkai, the tale of Genji, and the collection of the 10,000 Leaves, etc. I think he wished to encourage me to cultivate non-martial interests. Gaichu smiles crookedly and shrugs. I appreciated the gesture, but my attempts at fine calligraphy mostly resemble excited chickens prancing over paper, their feet soaked in ink. Leave the box alone. Was that it? I thought there was another thing. Okay, never mind. Oh wait, there's a couple other things there. So, there's a statuette. The statuette is of a round-faced Bodavista. Its head canted slightly to one side. Its hands are pressed together in prayer, and a tiny red bib is tied together around its neck. The figure expression is serene. It bears a slightly crooked smile. It's as if it knew a secret or had heard a joke. What's this tiny statue with a bib? Hmm? Gaichu pauses, turning an ear more fully toward you. Ah, the statue of Jizo, the protector of children. He is also the guardian of travelers. Statues of him are placed along almost every road in Japan. His name is outside Japan. It's Sitsugabara Harpa. Sorry. Sitsugarbha. Sorry. My apologies. Seems rather cute for you. It is, but it's not much about what he does, as so much as how much I enjoyed his temple in Kyoto. It was one of the few refugees I had. It was one of the few refuges I had during my time living in the city. Jizo Inn is in a tiny place. It is fairly close to a much larger and better-known sister temple of Sahoji on the western edge of Kyoto. Unlike Sahoji, however, Jizo Inn is almost unknown. Gaichu smiles fondly, looking sightlessly into the distance. To get there, you have to walk through twisted residential streets and past a deep green grove of bamboo. If you do not know what you are looking for, you will never find it. Most people assume the road is on simply a dead end. I recall walking there in a light rain. I could smell the ginkgo and maple leaves in the slight breeze. I would go there and simply sit and let myself be. Whatever I felt, the stress of school was too much for me. Inside, there were several small shrines, but the main attraction is the moss garden. You enter the very old meditation room from a small gate. You take off your shoes, you sit at the edge of the garden, and you feel the words outside slip from your mind like water through a sieve. Just you, the breeze, the trees, and the moss. The garden was a microcosm of my world, stripped bare of any confusion and bustle. That sounds nice. Smiling faintly, Gaichu dips his head. I rather thought so. I never saw more than two other people in the temple, no matter what the time of year. It seemed at the time to be my own private sanctuary. Examine the paper fan. The folding paper fan is cheaply constructed with thin paper stretched over plastic spines. It's obviously a souvenir sold to a tourist for a few yen. Unfortunately, the fan reveals a pleasant landscape Unfolding the fan reveals a pleasant landscape, a Japanese city in the 19th century or earlier, curved roofs at sunset beside a deep blue river. Two ships sail down the river, which is spanned by a long wooden bridge. In the foreground, laborers carry buckets along the shore as a man on horseback rides in the opposite direction. In the distance, a pair of large red buildings dominate the city's skyline, one large temple hall and five-tier pagoda. Gaichu grunts, not turning toward you. This is a fan from Sensoji Temple in Asakusa, one of the districts of Neo-Tokyo. The image is one of the less famous works by Ando Hiroshiga, a woodblock printer from before the Meiji Restoration. I purchased the fan while on leave from the military training. It reminded me of how open life felt when I was younger, how the future seemed to stretch out, full of possibilities, and also because I like the painting. Sometimes some things are just simple. Alright, let's talk to Director. Yeah, I didn't realize how long his story would be, but hey. My friend, there's something that I'd like to discuss with you. Something related to the Ares one that you recently accepted. You may recall my story about my former colleagues, Taylor and Hardingham, the ones who stole my research. They work at that facility. If the auto repair circuits that they took from me still exist, they are there. I need you to bring me on the run to retrieve them. And of course, you'll be the first man on the train when we head out. Thank you, my friend. I'll not regret this decision. I guarantee it. You can also say no, and he's like, come on! I want to go! Anyway, there's an air in Rector's shop is ripe with the stench of an old metalworking fluids. He turns to face you, a burning cigarette clenched between his teeth. Sorry about the smell. It's long past time to purge the coolant sump. He frowns. If I had access to the proper equipment, this would not be a problem. I could clean the fluids and reuse it, but alas, halogen treatment chambers are rather hard to come by, even in places like Hawaii. He shakes his head as if to clear it. Anyway, my friend, you didn't come here to discuss the ins and outs of shop maintenance, I'm sure. So what does bring you here? Anything else about the last round? The Wampoans may be socially maladjusted group, but I find their philosophies quite compelling. I suspect there is a fair amount of overlap between their vision of the future and my own. Your decision to spare their elders was a fortuitous one. I look forward to communicating with them at length about their belief system and the steps that they are taking in accordance with it. Something to look forward to, I suppose. Now, what else would you have of me? I've been thinking about what we talked about last time. May I have asked you a few questions? He tilts his head in acquiescence. Be my guest. I have no secret to keep. About the drone self-repair system they invented, how did it work? There were three distinct elements to my approach. When these elements were all working in concert, prototypes that utilize the process have displayed remarkable self-repair capabilities. This may be a lengthy explanation. I can skim over it if you please, or I can break it down for you if you're genuinely interested. Give me the long version. I want to know how this process works. He shifts his cigarette to the corner of his mouth. Very well, the long version it is. The first element of my process was an outer skin that the drone could be wrapped in, a refinement of older biometric self-healing materials modeled to emulate the self-repair capabilities of living beings. Imagine a polymer composite interlaced with microtubules, capillaries, if you will. These vessels are capable of delivering bonding agents to the site of a wound as it occurs, thus healing it. I've heard of smart materials that operate on a similar principle. They've been around for decades, haven't they? Yes, though they remain uncommon until recently. As I said, my material was a refinement on those earlier designs. It was also only the first part of a system. The synergy between the three was that made the project work. The second element involved the underlying structure of the drone's architecture, the servers, gears, circuits, etc. Utilizing self-assembling materials and redundant systems, I created a system by which damaged components could be fabricated and replaced by the drone itself, without any need for human interference. Alright, so you have self-healing skin and self-replicating or replacing underlying structure. What was the third part? Finally, the system had a magical component. The corner of his mouth dips downward. I must confess that there's a certain degree of ignorance when it comes to this portion of the project. I understand some of the theory behind what was done, but the specifics are behind me. I'm surprised. I thought this was your process through and through. Oh, it is. I was the one who recognized the need for a magical component, but I feel no shame in admitting that I cannot understand the specifics. I have a mind for figures and physics and the natural world. Magic works according to the different set of principles altogether. Truth be told, it makes my head hurt. Okay, so why did you need this third component? You said that was your idea. In layman's terms, a magical element was necessary to render the system self-perpetuating. Obviously, no purely mechanical system can repair itself indefinitely. The synthetic skin becomes more brittle with every wound that it heals, and the automated assembly components will eventually run out of materials to work with. As a rule, fighting against the entropy is a losing proposition. Same with human beings. But with magic, we can rewrite the rules, weaken the grasp of those intricate forces to the point that they are rendered negligible. Think of magic as the lubrication that keeps the gears turning. I wish that it weren't necessary, but I am also a realist. I must confess that it is required for the system to work. And this package of systems is what your former colleagues stole from you. What you need to get back? Yes, given enough time and resources, I might be able to recreate the first two components of the system on my own, but the magical component is, and will forever be, completely beyond me. That is why it's so important that we recover my research and the prototype that was stolen, and we will recover them. Of that I have no doubt. What do you think that a post-human future would mean? Freedom. He takes a long drag on a cigarette and sucking the smoke deep into his lungs. When he speaks, it erupts from his mouth in a plume. The ultimate freedom to direct our own progress and to steer ourselves as a people in whatever direction we wished. Consider, my friend, every aspect of Crochet was tailor-made for a purpose, dreamed up, designed, and built by a singular guided intelligence. You sound awfully proud of yourself. I see no shame in taking pride in my work. Crochet steps forward, the tip of its legs digging into the metal grate with lines that lines the shop floor. I believe that the fruits of my labor speaks for themselves. Now, getting back on track, think of the circumstances surrounding your own birth, the building blocks that shaped you into the living being that you are. Your mother and father exchanged fluids, sloppily, no doubt, and with all the mindless abandon that such biological imperatives entail. Well, I've never heard it taught like that before, but okay. About the act of sex. That might have been the ugliest description of sex I've ever heard. Ugly, perhaps, but accurate. Sexual intercourse is an inarticulate process and a messy delivery mechanism for genetic material spurned on by hormones and base urges. Any attempt to guide the process on a societal level gets branded eugenics and decried as monstrous for obvious reasons. But I digress. The point I was making was that the forces that shaped you and me and anyone else you cared to mention were ultimately mindless ones. Blind, manipulative biological drives that let a sperm and an egg to collide. This is what happens when worlds collide. Add in the roll of the dice and a dash of Mendelian genetics, and here you are. The natural process of evolution and sexual selection guide the development of our species through trial and error. Throw a few billion darts at the wall and see what sticks. In the future that I foresee, this process will be reined in, guided by our own controlling intelligence. To co-opt an antiquated phrase, the myth of the intelligent design will become a reality, but we will be our own gods, reshaping ourselves as we see fit. Biological evolution is full of choice, Ractor. We chose who we mate with. That choice helps determine the traits that our offspring will inherit. Very true, but the pool of possible traits that biological reproduction can select for is small. If I wanted to produce offspring with gill slits instead of lungs, I'd be out of luck. In a post-human future, I would face no such limitations, nor would anybody. We would no longer be slaves to the selective processes that have dictated our development since time immemorial. We would truly become the masters of our own fate. Let's say you're right. At what point do we cease being human and become something else entirely? He shrugs. Whenever we choose to define ourselves in the way, humanity is an instinctively human concept. If we decide to rebrand ourselves as a different species, that is our decision to make. I strongly suspect that no one else would care. There are other forms of intelligent life out there, Ractor. Dragons, for example. They might care. Perhaps, but for the sake of our continued development, that's a risk that I'm willing to take. We cannot limit ourselves out of fear for what others might think. Crochet raises itself up on its legs, stretching so that Ractor can caress its chassis. The motion is alarmingly fluid, more like a living thing than a machine. Ractor traces his fingertips over the drone's shell, his eyes focused on an imaginary point on the horizon. We have placed such unnecessary limitations on ourselves, my friend. It fills my heart with sorrow to know that what we could be, but are not. I would see those limits stripped away, peeled back, and discarded for the betterment of all. In the future that I foresee, we will open our eyes to the possibilities that surround us. Bodies reshaped to thrive in the deep ocean and the depths of space. Bodies inspired by nature or the human imagination or both. Bodies that can be used and shed and used again, inhabited as their wearers see fit. The timely realization of such a future is what drives me forward. It is the cause to which I have devoted my life, and thankfully it is inevitable. He tips his cigarette, sending ash spilling down in the metal floor. Assuming, of course, that we don't destroy ourselves. There's a hard limit to the fusion of man and machine. Doesn't your vision of the future require us to get past that? You're speaking of the essence limit and the problems associated with essence loss. He releases a plume of smoke from the corners of his mouth. Yes, of course, it would be a problem, but as with all problems, a workaround will present itself. Of this I am certain. Are you basing that on anything, or are you just taking it on faith? He smirks at you. No, my friend, I am not taking it on faith. My beliefs are rooted in my own observations and experiences. For the time being, let us leave the matter at that. So in this post-human future that you're trying to bring about, what role would a drone like Crochet play? A similar one to the role that he plays now, I imagine. He was designed for a purpose, after all. That said, I can see the techniques that went into design and fabrication having much broader ranging applications. You're pretty attached to that drone of yours, aren't you? You even assigned it a gender. You keep calling it him. Yes, of course. Crochet is very close to me. As if on cue, the drone scuttles forward, the hardened tips of its claws screeching across the middle floor of the shop. It comes up short just in front of you, a strange mechanical chitter rising from deep within its chassis. You might accuse me of anthropomorphizing my little companion. People do with like, what is it, Japan? Like, someone married, like a dating app or something like that. So, you know, that's not impossible. Imagining a human characteristics to him where in fact there are none. People do that to pets too. Truth be told, there's much more to Crochet than meets the eye, Transformers, but that is a different conversation, one best suited to be held for another time. That's what you want. He nods. It is. I have work to do, and I'm sure that you can find better uses for your time to listen to me prattle on. He gestures towards the hatch in the ceiling. And with that, I'm afraid I must ask you to show yourself out. We can continue our talk at a much later time. Alright, we'll talk later. He turns away. Good night. Alright, yeah. A bit of a long conversation, but this is why we save the companion talks for. Eventually there will be a time where you'll run out of companion dialogue because there's so many missions in the game. So it gives you plenty of time to max out your associate's dialogue before the end of the game. So, but I'm getting a lot of this out of the way sooner rather than later. I'm gonna exercise a bit, Pykel. Helps me clear my head. Come back later and we'll talk. Yeah, too bad we can't ask him about the run. So, oh well. Yeah, if you go too far in certain characters' dialogue, it'll just move on. You know, so we can't ask him about. If we had done the mission at a different point, we could ask him about the last run. But this is one of those cases where I can't. So I don't think Isabel has anything to say at this point either. Isabel's avatar flickers onto the screen. I saw that you accepted my offer. That was the right choice. You'll see. I'm ready to make a run on DECCON whenever you are. Any thoughts on the last run? She shakes her head. Nope, sorry. Checking into octopus is how I relax. After a long day of work, some people go to sports. Oh yeah, she repeats herself. If that's how you feel. It is. So if you want mention to the subject. So that's why you can almost, I think there's only a few times you can actually ask her about the job. But most times she'll say that, so there's no extra dialogue with her, which is kind of a lost opportunity. But nice avatar, though. Looks good on you. It is. I spent much sketching my the avatars. She feels much more to me than my skin. Oh yeah, we already asked her this. I guess it's the same dialogue. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll skip through this. I forgot her dialogue's the same, so. Yeah, so I didn't think she had anything really new, so. Alright, Gobbet, though, has some new dialogue, though. Let's talk to her. Gobbet looks up at you from a hot plate on the sound of your approach. A smile creases her face. She raises her eyebrows and gestures at the cabin around you. You know, the big Texas has really been shaping up over the past few days. With all that work that we've been putting into her, she's starting to feel like a real home. Anyway, enough about the boat. She puts her hands on her hips, sending madness scurrying. Ready for your next lesson, or you just want to chat? Any thoughts on the last run? I don't get the Wampones. I really don't. Isabel is about as close as I usually get to their particular flavor of crazy. You'd think with all that technology and backup, they'd have been smart enough not to stiff a red samurai on payment, much less a ghoul. I don't know, for smart people, they seem pretty damn dumb to me. I think we pulled off a damn miracle back there. Not only did we get a creepy-ass close combat expert on our side, we exposed the elders and got ourselves a nice little bonus for being smart. Not a lot of jobs go that right. I feel better and better about having you in charge, killer. So what else did you want to chat about? And then you can always ask her about changing the name of the boat if you really feel like it. Anyway, next lesson. Yeah? She smiles. That's good. I was hoping you want to keep going with this. It's good for you, and I'm kind of enjoying it. Gobbet runs a hand through the knotted ropes of her hair, a contemplative look on her face. A moment later, she turns her attention back to you. All right, this is going to be another long story, so I'm thinking we should take it in chunks. And if you got any questions, you can ask them along the way. And if you need to take a break, we can come back to it. Sound good? Don't ask Tell. You're the one who's running the show, remember? Of course, I remember. She folds her arms across her chest. And you're right, I'm the teacher, so shut up and listen until I tell you not to. Alright, so last time I told you about the event that brought an end to my illustrious career as a subcontractor. This time I'm going to tell you about a run that I went on with my regular team. Nightjar's team, you mean? No, that was before I hooked up with them. Iz was still learning to deck back then. She was good for her age, but she wasn't ready for prime time. It'd be another couple of years before I meet Nightjar or Annie Chang. You don't know anyone from that group that I'm talking about. They've all gone. They're all gone now anyway. Sorry. Thanks, but it's alright. When you run the shadows, losing people is an occupational hazard. She offered you a lopsided smile. As Shadowrunners are disposable assets, it shouldn't come as a surprise when we get used up and tossed away. Ain't no one lives forever. We all get flushed down the same chute in the end. Yeah, you know how it is. People die and it's sad, but there's no sense moping about it. So how'd you meet this group of yours? Through mutual friends. We actually all lived together, though we decided to start running as a team. There was this floating squatters commune out in the Hong Bay. It's probably still out there, actually. I haven't been back in a long time, but I spent a few years living on the thing, and the rest of the team lived there with me. You lived on, a raft? Yeah, basically, we called it the sinking ship. It wasn't much to look at, just a whole bunch of shipping containers all bolted together into a great big floating brick. Wasn't the most comfortable place I've ever lived, but the price was right and the company was good. Tell me about the team that you're running with. Sure. She extends a hand so that she can count off teammates on her finger. Madness scurries down down her sleeve and perches on her forearm. Our muscle was a Hawaiian Jew with poor impulse control, big round guy with lumberjack arms and ringlets in his hair. He called himself Hanu. I guess that he loved turtles? I don't know, street names are weird. We had a tech specialist, Egret. She was tall, gawky, dyed her hair bone white. She had a drone named Arlo that followed her around like a lost puppy. She was kind of a jack of all trades, but she could get the job done. Funny parties too. Our de facto team leader was a guy named Sue. He was a wiry troll, if you can imagine that. Probably about 2% body fat, all skin and bones, walked with a hunch to make himself look smaller. He was a shaman, followed rat like me. There can't be many troll rat shamans out there. Not that I met, but Sue seemed like a really good guy. We got along. I actually really liked everyone on the team. They were a lot of fun to run with. I'd like to hear more about the sinking ship. Let's hold off on that for a little bit, okay? I'd like to get through the rest of the story before we spend any more time on the raft. After your lesson's over, I'll tell you whatever you want to know about the commune, but for now, I'd rather not get sidetracked. Okay, I think I've got a grasp on the team dynamic. Keep going. She nods. Alright, moving on. So one day, Sue brought us a job. He'd met a client in a Victoria Harbor bar, a rich Eastern Tiger exec. The guy wanted us to steal something for him, a shiny object. She raises her hands. I know, it's stupid, right? But that was how the Johnson described it to us, the shiny object. Sounds like a really bad DM. Couldn't think of a good idea for the name, so that was what he wanted us to get. He never gave it any other name. Seriously, a rot shaman hired to steal a shiny object? Yeah, you can see how the gig would be hard for us to resist. Anyway, the client told us what to look for. He described it as a chunk of red jade about the size and shape of an ostrich egg, with a mirror polished surface and gold wire inlays. He said that it had proper paper charms hanging off of it, food talismans, Taoist sorcerer stuff. We weren't supposed to touch those. The client also told us about the shiny object's then owner, an old hedge wizard turned entrepreneur named Kong Juan. A hedge wizard? She nods. He had the whole wise old sage thing going on. He had the robes, the little hat, the kind smile. Oh, and the piece de la resistance, a long wispy beard. He was mean as a snake, though. Had a rep to prove it. Intel said that old man Ji Wan was keeping the shiny object in one of the warehouses. He had a bunch of them. He built himself a nice little empire selling magical paraphernalia through puppet vendors in the Wamate night market. Supposedly a good fifth of the stalls in that place were on Ji Wan's payroll. Yeah, what kind of magical paraphernalia are we talking about? She begins counting off examples on her fingers. Pickled regents and mason jars, hermetic scrolls and charms, relics looted from Buddhist temples, crates of old Balinese writing damask, and fist-sized stones from a great dragon's kidney. Ji Wan sold it all. How he got his hands on it in the first place is anyone's guess. Some of that stuff sounds valuable. Yeah, I'm sure that some of it was. Most of it was crap, though. Fakes and forgeries to sell to gullible tourists. Sifting the good stuff from the bad would have taken time. We weren't planning on sticking around long enough to do that. Fair enough. So we cased the warehouse for a couple of nights before the run. Did some recon, took some notes. And what we had seen, we pretty much sure that Ji Wan was keeping our payday in a vault area in the very back of the building. Security was pretty heavy, though. He was paying a local triad for protection. He kept a lot of their boys on staff.
Sue was the one who came up with the plan. We'd split it outside and enter the warehouse on 2 teams. Team A would create a diversion, and Team B would hit the vault while security was looking the other way. We'd grab our payday, regroup, and get the hell out of there.
In my experience, splitting the group is almost always more trouble than it's worth. Don't you know? You never split the party.
I'd agree with you. If we were going in and expecting a straight fight by the Shadowrunners, you should almost never want to get into one of those. When you're on a job, you're always going to be outnumbered and outgunned. Going quiet is inherently safer than going loud, and if splitting the group is what it takes to do that,
she shrugs.
Anyway, Team A was Hanu and Egret, circled around to the locking dock, just like we planned. Sue and I waited by the service entrance. We didn't have to wait long. A couple of minutes in, we heard this ungodly crash, then another and another. As it turns out, Egret had rigged in the G1's network of automated forklifts. She had 6 of them running amok in the loading dock, chasing down workers and crashing themselves into anything marked fragile. Fragile, it's Italian.
Sounds like a good time.
I know, right?
A dreamy smile spreads across her face.
I wish I could have been there to see that. Egret's distraction did what it was supposed to do. As Sue and I watched, most of the Triad guys at the service entrance abandoned their posts and went hauling off towards the loading dock. A couple of guys with baseball bats stayed back, but we handled them easily enough. We slipped inside and made a beeline for the back of the warehouse where the shiny object was supposed to be.
You weren't kidding about this being a lost... No, just kidding. Let me guess, something went wrong?
No, actually, it was there just like we thought it'd be. The door was open and everything. Shiny object was sitting there in a teak cradle, gleaming with reflected light, just like the client had said. It was a ring of talisman hanging off of it like a grass skirt. The paper all crinkled with age. We didn't waste any time. I reached in and grabbed the thing. It felt strange through my gloves. The jade sort of pulsed as if it had a heartbeat.
Yeah, that sounds ominous.
Yeah, tell me about it. I wanted to drop the thing, but it was our payday, so I slipped it into my satchel instead. I couldn't get the flap closed quickly enough. The package being secure, Sue and I turned to handtail it out of there. And that's when things went to shit.
Did you run into more security?
Worse, old man G1 himself was standing right there in front of us, larger than life, with sparks shooting out of his eyes. I'm guessing that when he heard the commotion in the loading docks, he came running, well, waddling to make sure that his treasure was safe. And as it turns out, it wasn't because it had already been stolen. As it turns out, it wasn't because it had already stolen it. Sorry, just sometimes I get messed up on certain words. As it turns out, it wasn't because I'd already stolen it. He looked displeased. He was an old man, and there were 2 of you. How much of a threat could he be? Oh, plenty. He was a mage, remember? Plus, he was pretty spry for his age. We opened up on him, but it wasn't exactly a pushover. It was pretty epic, truth be told. Spirits were summoned, spells were discharged, the vault door sealed behind G1 like something out of a movie. At one point, the old man leapt onto Zoo's back and tried to bite his ear off. I won't bore you with the play-by-play of how the fight went down. In the end, we crushed him. Unfortunately, the fighting had caused some collateral damage. At some point during our showdown with G1, the control panel over the vault door must have eaten an arc of lightning or a blast of a powerball. It was toast, all black and melted. None of us could fix it. So you're trapped in the vault? Yeah, that's about the size of it. It was only a matter of time before the old man's remaining security guards found us in there. There was still one way out, a ventilation duct up high in the rafters, but it was too small for Sue to fit through. He was a troll after all. I had the shiny object, but if I left Sue there and security got to him, well, you do the math. So here's the conundrum. I've got our payday in my satchel, the team is split, and it's inevitable the more Triad 49ers are going to find us, but we don't know when or how many. Egret and Hanu are holding their own in the loading dock, for now. I can stay with Zoo and help him fight off the inevitable wave of Triad 49ers, but we'll be blatantly outmatched, like badly. The odds of survival aren't good for either of us. If Egret weren't pinned down in the loading dock, she could probably get the vault door open, but in order to get to her, I'd have to leave Zoo alone in the vault. If G1's reinforcements find Sue before I get back with Egret, well...
She uses her thumbs to draw a line across her neck.
So that's the scenario killer. Not a lot of work with, I know. Tell me, what should I do?
Let's see. I mean, this is not a really big decision. It's more just like what your character would do. Well, you've got a dangerous magical artifact in your pouch, right? I think I try to use it. She nods, unsmiling.
That's the most stylish answer, isn't it? Just audacious enough to be fun. It popped into my head right then and there, same as it did yours. That's what I did. No hesitation. I just made it happen. It was almost like Sue had been waiting for me to pass him the thing. He seemed eager to take it. He hugged the chalk of rock to his chest like a newborn baby. Color swam in the stone, and something changed in his eyes. Then old man Juan's 49ers breached the door, and Sue unleashed hell. She pauses, frowning, stops scratching folly, and uses the hand to rub her eyes. Finally, she turns back to you. A sour look pinches her features. What went down in that room? Well, I've only seen that kind of courage a couple of times in my life, and I've been running the shadows for years. Those triad men were torn to scrapes by the end of it. Don't think I'll forever forget the sounds that they made. She clears her throat. I spent most of the fight huddled up in the corner for my own safety. What Zoo let loose from the stone didn't seem terribly interested in discriminating between friend and foe. What do you mean by that? Did he just summon hostile spirits or something? Something like that. Truth be told, I don't know what they were. Like I said, I was hiding, but he couldn't have done it without the shiny object. Not in a million years. Whatever they were, that brought them here. So what happened then? She shrugs. We waited for the things to calm down in the vault, and for the things to go slithering away. I think that Sue had some limited control over them, which is why they didn't eat us. After they were gone, Sue gave me the shiny object back. I put it in my satchel and we bailed. We collected the others on the way out. They were blissfully ignorant of what had happened on the other side of the warehouse, and I didn't see reason to change that. We hightailed it back to the docks and caught the first boat back to the sinking ship. Mission accomplished. Gobbet looks away again, stares off into space. From what I'm told, people still avoid G1's warehouse like the plague. It's supposed to be haunted, even to this day. People who set foot in the building keep turning up dead. Pretty sure I'm one of the only living people who knows why. Abruptly, her body language changes. Anyway, that's it. Lesson over. If you got questions, go ahead. Gobbet, was there any point to this story? I'm trying to find a moral here. There was when I started telling it. I thought I was going to tell you to be comfortable with breaking the rules. I don't think I'm going to say that now, though I'm not feeling it anymore. Why not? At least your team made it out of this run alive. They didn't stay that way for long, but let's leave that for next time. I don't want to get into it just now. Can you tell me more about the sinking ship? Yeah, sure. The story's over, so I can get into it. I moved into the sinking ship when I was just a kid. I think that I was 12, maybe 13 years old at the time. In the beginning, it was just me and a couple of rat shaman friends, Cadmus and Malvina. They were older, but they were always cool to me. Did your friends build the raft? No way. Cadmus probably could have, but he didn't. He and Malvina are appropriate from our former owners. There was a team of Shadowrunners that had lived on the thing before us, but they bid it on a job. Cat and Mal heard the knock of opportunity, and they claimed the raft for the rat in the record time. Taking over the sinking ship wasn't an easy job, mind you. The previous owners had installed traps and automated defenses all over the raft. Cat had his handful with those for a month. Sounds really cozy, Gobbet, like a floating death trap. That actually isn't too far off. There were explosives, pop turrets, all that good stuff. Cat and his sister Yasmin took care of it, most of it, without too much trouble, though. The biggest problems were the scuttling charges. The runners who built the raft had installed these explosives all on the perimeter that had ripped the bottom out of the thing if it were ever seized by the police. The explosives were tricky to deal with. Cat was able to disarm them, but he had to leave them where they were. It was always just slightly uncomfortable knowing that I was sleeping on top of a couple 100 pounds of dormant explosives. Yeah, I can't blame you there. She shrugs. Hey, like I said, it was free. There weren't really any rules to follow, which suited me fine. Malvina was sort of the leader of our little nest, but we really never really listened to her. She was always trying to play the mom card, instill a sense of responsibility on us. It was cute. She did have a propensity for getting things done, though. I'd have to give her that. Anyway, after a few months, other people started showing up. Squatters, homeless people, Shadowrunners, and assorted crazies. As long as they stayed cool with us, we were cool with them. Eventually it became a community. Imagine that. Think you wound up squatting on the big Texas because of your time on the sinking ship? I don't know, maybe. Never really thought about it before, but yeah, maybe. Corner of her mouth curls upward. I guess I'm a water rat now. Let's take a break and come back to this later. Of course, like I said, it's a long story. So what was there something else you wanted to talk about? That's all for now, Gobbet. Talk to you later. Yeah, hey Killer, I'm sorry that this lesson wound up getting a little unfocused at the end. I'm not really sure what came over me. It happens to the best of us. Well, I still feel bad about it. So look, I'll take you on a deal. Your next lesson will definitely be on point, and I'll tell you what it's about up front. No more question and answer session. How does that sound? Fine by me, Gobbet. Catch you next time. Next time. She waves.
All right. Well, yeah, that was another long episode, folks, and sometimes that's just kind of how it be. Sometimes I'll keep it long, and sometimes I'll split it up. And in this case, I think I'll keep it one episode. But now with everyone talking out of the way, now it's time to do the next job. What awaits us? Will we be able to find what Ractor needs for it? Will we actually bring Ractor along? Will there be any trouble caused? And will Koshei get the petting he so rightly deserves? We'll find out next time in the next episode of Shadowrun Hong Kong. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.